Welcome to Jim Apologetics. This is, of course, your host, Jim. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Any subscription is always helpful. Any comments that you guys have, if they're cool and I like them, I'll respond. If I don't like them, I won't respond. That's kind of it. So, how to say something. Today, we're going to deal with the reality of Orthodox Christianity in this world. And what does that mean? Well, this is going to be kind of a two-parter, a very casual two-parter, on online orthodoxy, which will be the second video, and then this one is going to be on the reality of orthodoxy in the world. What I mean by that is demography, population, piety, or religious practice, religiosity, belief, and culture. Because things are not as simple as they may seem. For example, regard this map. This is what most people who go on social media and who are not avid map fans like myself will post. And they'll say, look at the Orthodox world. But this is not the Orthodox world. This is ridiculous. And the reason it's ridiculous is because of Russia. We'll zoom in on Russia here. Russia is the largest country on Earth without any competition. To give you an idea of how large it is and where the population lives, I want you to realize that the Russian Federation, like all countries, is made up of many different districts, sometimes called regions, governorates. In Russia, they're called federations and other names. And so two of the federations, or two of the regions in Russia that are just regions, they're not even entire countries. There are two regions in Russia, this one here and this one there. This area generally referred to as Siberia, particularly the one in the northeast. These two regions are about as large as the United States, not including Alaska, and they're about as large as Europe by themselves. These two regions have a population of less than 4 million. Each one of them has less than 4 million people. These areas are enormous. If you could cover most of China with the Siberian region of Russia, maybe you could cover all of China. And we can't use this in a map to look at orthodoxy, say, oh, orthodoxy is here. Yeah, orthodoxy is present in that area. No one will deny that, but to act as if our religion is more massive than it is simply due to the size of Russia is inaccurate. And then when people realize, oh, wait a minute, there's only 260 million Orthodox Christians, then they get a little disheartened. Because we have to be realistic. So demography and population density are very important. Here's a map of population density. It may look like most of the world's underpopulated, but in reality, it's just that India and China, who have had 4,000 years of continuous population gain and fertile soil, have been able to become ridiculously dense and overpopulated, as well as the rest of Southeast Asia, I might add. In fact, if you drew a bubble around all of Southeast Asia, or most of it, at least from Borneo up until the tip of Mongolia, where China ends, and then around through India, there's more people living in that bubble than the rest of the world put together. So they have a massive population. They're kind of an outlier. But look at Russia. No one lives in these areas in the northeast. So it's ridiculous to say, well, Russia, has so-and-so percent of the entire world. Therefore, look at how massive orthodoxy is. Let's trim that down. Here's what orthodoxy actually is, not including the massive Russian zones. And then here's what it actually is if we include some realism here, because not everybody in every country is going to be extremely religious. In most countries, probably 10 to 15% of the people saying they're Catholic, Orthodox, Hindu, Muslim are very, very nominal, and they're just kind of like cultural Muslims, cultural Orthodox. We can kind of trim that fat as well. In my estimation, there's around 220, 230 million people who care at least a little bit about being Orthodox. Now I notice if we take a look at this graph or this map here, we're comparing the United States with Europe, and it says that the United States, people believe in God more. But I want to clarify, very important here, because I think this is a fallacious argument. I think it's a false equivalency. In America, when you ask people, do you believe in God? They'll say something ridiculous like, yeah, I believe in a God, there is a higher power. I'm actually quoting directly my girlfriend's mother. My girlfriend, fortunately, has followed me into Orthodoxy, and she absolutely loves God so much, and she's very religious, So I'm blessed to have that, blessed to have her in my life. But her parents are these kind of type. And by the way, these are not like liberal Californians. They're rural people from the reddest part of upstate New York, and they still spout stuff like this. So a lot of Americans are like that. I believe in a higher power, because they don't want to admit they don't believe in anything, because they want their ancestors to be in heaven. But then, of course, we get to, and this is another topic, how do you know there's a heaven if you don't believe in one concrete religion? So as I pointed out in my tweet here, the American belief system is flawed. And the idea that Americans are much better off in terms of Christianity than Europe is flawed, because Europeans, though lazy, lukewarm, bastardizing their own religion, are at least aware of what their religion is. You're either Christian in Europe, or you're not. In America, it's very mixed, and more importantly, they don't apply religious code into real life. Religion is just something you do for 40 minutes on the weekday, or 30 minutes if you're Western Christian, and or on the weekend, and that's all you do. And it's not important. It has no impact on life, on society. And that's why so many Americans get all uppity, like, why would you put Christianity into politics? Because that's where it belongs. This is a religion. This is how we live our lives. And I'm not talking about the literal jackass party or the obese elephant that ironically has no memory and doesn't know how to conserve anything. We should not be putting Christianity in those parties and adapting our faith for them. Rather, the world should adapt for us. It's the ideal way. Now, anyway, so when we look at that map, it's very misleading. People believing in God is not enough because they don't believe in the Christian God. They don't actually follow religion. Believing in a God, you're a theist. You're not religious. You don't follow a religion. So I would argue that Christianity is still stronger in Europe, even if people who answer the raw belief question are lower on that barometer. And also, many of these polls are subjective, because some of them say, are you absolutely sure that a God exists? And not everyone's absolutely sure. I know many people who are very religious Christians, and they're not absolutely sure. They're not agnostics, but you can't be absolutely sure unless you've done proper study into metaphysics and philosophy. And you know what? 99.9% of people who live outside of Twitter and Discord aren't going to do that. Speaking of Twitter and Discord, the majority of orthodoxy happens in real life, in communities, and not everyone is going to have the same level of piety as the others. I've already mentioned in a video, and I've apologized already and had a defense for, I've done an apologist account and had a defense for Russia, and this applies to the rest of Eastern Europe that was affected by communism. I'm not going to go over that again. If you want to see why I defended Russia, look at that. But I'll add one more thing, and that is that although Russians have a low church attendance rate, they claim, at least for their own cultural point of view, that they don't have to have a high church attendance rate. They don't have to have a high church attendance rate in order to believe in orthodoxy. And I would further add on to this by relating it to what we talked about with the United States. Even though more people in America go to church, they're not going to a good church. I'm not just saying, oh, you're a kafir, you're a heretic, you're an infidel because you're a Protestant. Heterodox. Well, true as that may be, from my Orthodox perspective, that's not the bad thing. The bad thing, the worst thing, is that in America, churches basically show up, here's a little life lesson, okay, go on your way, and apply none of that into your life, and have no respect for it. And so, again, I would argue that although church attendance is lower, and absolute belief in a God is lower in Russia, and they have all these other problems from communism, I would still argue that Russians at least respect Orthodox Christianity more. They respect the concept of orthodoxy more, and therefore I would say that Russia is a better Christian nation than the United States. Not by a lot, but by that metric, I think it is. Because people respect orthodoxy even as a culture. Even if they don't practice it on an individual level, the Russian society respects orthodoxy for the most part, other than some outlying weirdos. Whereas in America, American society does not respect Christianity. American communities do not get outraged when Christianity is upset, other than, of course, people who are, on purposely very religious. But the average American does not get that outrage. The average American does not hold the religious core of Christianity valuable in life. Therefore, Russia does. They are on their way to becoming more religious, and they are growing each day, and the government defends it, and the government is building churches and monasteries and repairing them, which Biden and no one else is ever going to do in America. Even Trump's not ever going to do that. So please keep that out of my channel. Then in my view, there is more hope for Russia, even if Russia is far from perfect, because what constitutes American Christianity is really not Christianity. And again, I'm not being nitpicky just because they're Protestant. People just don't believe in a religion anymore. And they still say Christian on the checkbox because they don't want to say they're atheist. Let's be serious there, okay? Looking at the rest of Eastern Europe, Romania, Moldova, Serbia, Macedonia, Montenegro, and the Serbian part of Bosnia all have a very strong level of Orthodox adherence. Eastern Ukraine has a very strong level of Orthodox adherents. Georgia is extremely strong in Orthodoxy. I think it's called like Transnistria within Moldova is extremely strong in Orthodoxy. Bulgaria, and this is relating to the Russian issue versus America again, is only about 60% Orthodox because almost half the population left and they became atheists or agnostics due to some political stuff. We'll get into that in another video. And communism. However, I would still rather go and live in Bulgaria where I know, hey, even if only half the population is Christian, I can count on that half to be serious, to be respectful, to fast, to have a serious prayer life, to have serious attitudes about Christ, to know who Christ is, to worship God in a temple liturgically, and to not treat the religion as a joke. So even if Bulgaria is only 20% Orthodox, I'd rather live there than live somewhere where the religion is a joke. And that's where these polls don't always show us the reality. Now, I'm trying to be fair here. There are some Orthodox that are kind of crazy on the internet. Let's be clear. Russia and Orthodox Europe as a whole is not a theocracy like Iran. It is not going to be the heavenly kingdom on earth manifested. Greece is, I would say Greece takes Orthodoxy seriously, but not everybody does on an individual basis, kind of like Russia. So the Greek nation and the Greek people have a great pride for Orthodoxy. Their practice levels are way higher than Russia, but there are a lot of people who personally don't involve themselves in the church that much, but I don't think, there's never going to be a case where Greeks just all become atheist and Greece becomes liberal, super liberal like America. I don't think that will ever happen. I think Greece is kind of the middle line. It's a little more chilled out than Romania, but it's never going to be like 2% Orthodox. It's always going to be Orthodox country, and this is why sometimes cultural Christianity is not bad, because Orthodoxy is integral with Greece. You can't separate them. Integral is how people say it in the United States. I went to a British school. Some of my sayings are Britishisms, unfortunately. I'm kidding. Alright, so that's the reality of Orthodoxy in the world. I'll do an episode on the online scene, its problems, what's wrong with it. I have other videos coming up, such as Orthodoxy in the Middle East, who are the Melkites, mainly Melkite Catholics there. I'm going to do a video comparing more of the Quran to the divinity of Christ again. And then, any other topics, let me know. But I wanted to show you the reality of population density, demography, and everything else in the world, and the difference between Western ideas of I'm religious / I believe, and what the rest of the world considers to be religious. Thank you guys, and see you next time.